Hello friends, welcome to this session of Quality Hub India. Myself Aryan Vishwakarma, and in this module we are going to learn about statistical process control. Now before going to the content of the module, let me request all the new viewers, if you are not subscribed to my channel, then click on the red subscribe button, and also don't forget to share the link of the video with your friends and colleagues so that they can also join us and they can also learn something from us. Friends, as we know that in quality management system there are 5 core tools are there, which are advanced product quality planning, production part approval process, measurement system analysis, statistical process control, and failure modes and effect analysis. So we are going to cover one of the most important core tool, that is statistical process control, in this module. Friends, this is a brief module on statistical process control. If you want to learn statistical process control in more details, do visit our website and buy our online training and certification program. There you will find the programs in more details with lots of examples, case studies, exercises in Minitab and Excel sheet exercises also. So let's now first understand what is the statistical process control is all about. Friends, in any process, whether it is a manufacturing process or a service process or any transactional processes, there will be variation, because we know that variation is bound to happen, that is inherent part of the process. Now the variation would be there. So how to control them? There are many ways of controlling the variation in the process, and statistical process control, or SPC in short, that is known to be one of the most popular way of controlling the processes. SPC not only helps us to monitor the processes, but it also helps us to detect the small changes in the process so that we can initiate corrective actions, and in certain cases we can also initiate the preventive actions. So in short, we can say that SPC is a mean of deciding and understanding if my process is in control or if my process is stable. So that means if I want to know if my process is stable or in the state of statistical control, I can use SPC as a tool. Now friends, let's understand why this SPC is so important for any organization. Friends, as we know that in any of the manufacturing process or in any of the processes, there is bound to be variation. So if you don't control variation, there is bound to be scrap or rework, and that can affect my customer satisfaction also. That will affect my overall target of meeting the required quality and productivity. So if I work on SPC, if I work on reducing the variation in the processes, this will be helping me to reduce scrap. This will also helping me to reduce rework, and ultimately my overall quality would go up and productivity will also go up. And in today's competitive market, if my product quality is not good, my customer is not satisfied, if I'm not getting repeat orders, if there are rejections, rework, my cost of poor quality is high, I won't be able to compete in the market. So for that friends, we need to have a structured approach of controlling the processes and making the process stable. And here comes the use of statistical process control. So friends, statistical process control comprises of 3 elements: statistical, process and control. So the first element is statistics. So let's now first understand what is statistics. Friends, in today's world, all our decisions are based on samples. Say for an example, in a manufacturing company, if I am making a judgment in incoming or a judgment in process or during final inspection, all my decisions are based on samples. I pick small samples from the complete population, and then I make a judgment based on the sample only if my complete lot is okay or not. So this way of decision making is called statistics. That means in statistics, we take small samples from the complete population, and here the complete population means all product. For an example, in my incoming inspection, I received 2000 number parts from a supplier. So these 2000 number parts would be the population, and I pick 10 number parts from this population, and these 10 number parts would be my sample. So for decision making, usually we pick samples from the population and we conclude based on the sample if my entire population is okay or not. So this way of decision making is called statistics. Now let's come to the second term, that is process. As we know that the definition of process is, it's a set of interrelated activities which converts input into output by utilizing some resources. That means there will be some set of activities which are interrelated, and it always uses some input materials. And input could be many things. It could be manpower, it could be resources, it could be electricity, it could be any other things. So in a process, we always do set of activities which converts input into output. So friends, we have understood what is statistics, what is process, and now about control. So control is a typical way of controlling a process. Now here in statistical process control, we are using statistics in a process to control the process. So that's why the term statistical process control. Now friends, in statistical process control, whatever control charts we are using, that will be based on the type of data I am using. And as we know that there are two types of data which are used in industries, and the first one is variable data, which is also called continuous data, and the second type is attribute data, which is also known as discrete data. So let's take some example to understand what is this variable and what is this attribute data. So this variable data, this is measured on a continuous scale. For an example, in a manufacturing setup, we use vernier caliper, micrometer or bore dial. So these are the gauges which will give us continuous data. So all our process parameters, weight of materials, measurement of time and cost and product dimension, these are all measured in a variable data or in a continuous scale. In other hand, the attribute data is basically data by counting. And the attribute data or the count data, this will always come in a whole number. So all our decision for visual inspection or with gauges like snap gauges, plain plug gauges or thread plug gauges, this will give us attribute results. Now here one of the important things you need to remember, variable measurements are always considered more superior than attribute. So in most of our studies, whenever we are using variable data, our sample size would be less, and in case of attribute data, which is considered to be less reliable, our sample size would be higher. Now friends, let's understand the concept of central tendency and dispersion. To understand the concept of central tendency, let's see these two figures. Here you can see that this bar is suspended horizontally. Now here the bar is tilted. The reason is that the rope over here is tied in the center of gravity, and here it is tied away from the center of gravity. And friends, as we know that center of gravity, which is known as CG in short in physics, and we have studied in school that center of gravity is the point where the entire mass of the body is supposed to be concentrated. So in the same way friends, if you want to know the central tendency of a set of number or a set of data, there are three matrices we can use to understand them. First one is mean, which is also known as average. Second is median, and third one is mode. That means mean, median or mode. Either of these three can be used to know the measure of central tendency for a set of numbers. Now let's understand them one by one in more details. Friends, the first measure of central tendency is mean, which is also known as average. And to calculate the mean is quite simple. We can sum up all the values and we can divide them by the number of values. Say for an example, if I have 10 numbers of data points, and if I want to calculate the mean or average of the data point, I will add up all the 10 numbers and divide that number with 10. So I will getting mean or average. And to calculate the median, that is also quite simple. And for that, first of all, whatever set of numbers we are having, we need to organize them either in ascending order or in descending order. So after organizing them in ascending or descending order, we can identify the middle point, and that will be our median. Now to calculate the median for even and for odd conditions, we have two formulas. So let's take the first one, that is even number. For an example, if I have 10 numbers of data point, and to calculate the median for that, the value would be n by 2. That means 10 by 2, that will be fifth value plus n by 2 plus 1. That will be sixth value. That means fifth plus sixth value, and I will divide that by 2. That will be my median for a data set which has even numbers. And for odd, that is quite simple. For an example, if I have 11 numbers, then the median would be 11 plus 1, that will be 12 by 2, that is sixth value. So in this way we can calculate median of data point which has even numbers and for data point which has odd numbers. Now let's come to mode. So calculating mode is also very simple, friend. This is the value which occurs with the highest frequency. That means in the number of data points or the data set, whichever numbers are occurring most of the time with highest frequency, with highest occurrence, that is our mode. And in many cases, it is quite possible that you might have multiple number of mode. Now let's come to measure of dispersion. We have understood the measure of central tendency. That is basically a way of identifying or locating the center value or central value of the given data point. Now here we want to understand the measure of dispersion. Broadly speaking, this is basically identifying the spread of the data point. That means we want to understand what is the spread or how much my data points are spreaded from each other. And to calculate the measure of dispersion, we have many matrices: range, standard deviation, variance, and coefficient of variation. And in industry, standard deviation is quite popularly used in many of the cases. In fact, in most of the statistical analysis, we use standard deviation as measure of understanding the dispersion. Now friends, let's understand how to calculate standard deviation. So standard deviation is denoted by sigma for population and it is denoted by S for sample standard deviation. And you can see the difference in the formula. Now here in population, the standard deviation is calculated with this formula. Now here you can see the denominator is n, which is the population size, and here in sample, the denominator is n minus 1. That is the number of sample subtracted with 1, which is known as degrees of freedom. And rest of the formula remaining the same. Now here you can see that the mean or average is denoted by mu, and here in the case of sample it is x bar. So the population standard deviation is denoted by sigma and the population mean is denoted by mu, whereas the sample standard deviation is denoted by S and sample mean is denoted by x bar. So the next term is range, and to calculate the range, the formula is quite simple. We need to subtract the largest observation with the smallest observation and we will be getting the range. And variance is square of the standard deviation, or we can say that standard deviation is the square root of variance. And coefficient of variation, which is denoted by CV in short, the formula would be standard deviation divided by mean. Now friends, let's understand the difference between process control and process capability. In many of the cases, friends, while talking to many of the engineers or professionals, they always get confused between process control and process capability. And whenever I talk to them, they typically talk about CP/CPK study in process control, which is quite wrong, because statistical process control and process capability are two different things. So let's understand the difference. So friends, in process control, as the name suggests, we are controlling the process. That means we want to know if my process is in a state of statistical process control or if my process is stable. And as we know that stability means I want to know how my process is behaving over a period of time. That means I want to know if my process over a period of time is in a state of control or not. And in case of process control, we always understand the stability with reference to control limit, that is upper control limit and lower control limit. And in SPC study or in control charts, we have a control limits upper and control limit lower, and there will be one target line, which is the central line. Now, once my process is in a state of statistical control, now I would like to know if my process is capable or not. Now, capability is always calculated with reference to specification limit, which is identified by the designer, whereas the control limits are calculated based on the observation from the process itself. So in the case of process capability, I would come to know if my process is making some rejections beyond lower specification limit or making some rejections beyond upper specification limit. Friends, statistical process control is a process of understanding the variation in the process, and for understanding the variation, we must understand the relationship between input and outputs. Here in this chart, you can see that relationship between inputs and output. It basically shows that whatever amount of variation you are having in your input, that is bound to get reflected in the output. That means your variation in the output will always be at least size of the input, or it can be higher even, because all of the variation from the input are going to get translated into output, and your process also going to contribute some amount of variation. So your output variation is bound to have at least equal or higher than the input variation. And we know this formula y is a function of x, which is quite commonly used in process of Six Sigma. So y here is basically our output variable, which is also called dependent variable, and this output variable is dependent on x, which is called input variable. So y is a function of x. It basically means that y is dependent variable, which is a function of your input variables. So to optimize your output variable, you need to identify the input variables and you need to control your input variables. So more and more you focus on your input variables and you reduce the variation in your input variables, your output is going to be better. Now friends, let's understand the concept of some other aspects of variation. Friends, in our control charts, we always take some samples in some set frequencies and we try to understand the variation between and within the processes. So here in this example, you can say that, suppose for an example, here we have taken a sample at 9 o'clock in the morning, and after each 1 hour of interval, we are taking some samples. So at 9 o'clock, suppose I have taken a sample of 5 numbers. So whatever variation I am going to get over here, this will be called within subgroup variation. That means 5 number is my subgroup size. So I am going to have some variation over here. So this will be called within subgroup variation. So in the same way, suppose at 10 o'clock, I again take 5 number sample. So there is bound to be some variation over here. This will be again within variation. So here within sample 1 variation, within sample 2 variation, within sample 3 variation. And within sample 1 and sample 2, there is bound to be some variation between these two samples. So this will be between subgroup variation. So I will have between subgroup variation between 1 and 2, 1 and 3, 2 and 3, and 3 and 4. And my variation from this extreme side to this side, which is basically covering all the process variation, will be called total variation. So friends, for understanding the statistical process control, you must understand the concept of within subgroup variation, between subgroup variation, and total variation. Friends, we have understood the concept of variation. Now since variation is an inherent part of the process, there is bound to be some causes which are influencing my variations. So there are basically two types of causes of variation. The first one is called common cause and the second one is special cause. As the name suggests, common cause is common in nature. In your process, more than 85% of the variation will be common cause and 50% variation will be special causes. Common cause of variation will make your process stable, predictable and repeatable. And the process under influence of special causes will not be stable, not be predictable and not be repeatable. Special causes are not always present in the process. You need to identify the special causes and you need to initiate actions to reduce the impact of special causes. Friends, common causes can also be minimized, but it requires management intervention. It requires some investment, whereas special causes will always require local action. That means a line person or supervisor or an operator, they themselves can initiate action to control special causes. Friends, this is a very brief session on statistical process control. If you want to learn details about statistical process control, about various control charts, attribute control chart, variable control chart, and how to make these control charts in Excel, and how to make these control charts using Minitab, along with case studies and examples, you can opt for our online training cum certification program. And for that, you can visit our website courses.qualityhubindia.com, or you may go to Google Play Store to download our app, Quality Hub India app. And with that app, you can directly buy our courses online with your credit card, debit card, and you can learn from convenience of your home and you can get certified also. Everything will be managed online. The test will be also conducted online and you will be getting your certificate at your home. Now let's understand how many types of control charts are there. Friends, our control charts are based on the type of data we are using. And we have already seen that we have two types of data, that is variable and attribute. In the same way, for variable, we have different kinds of control chart. For an example, X bar R chart, which is also known as average and range chart. We also have X bar S chart, which is average and standard deviation chart. We also have individual moving range chart and many more. And for attribute chart, commonly used in industries are P chart, NP chart, C chart and U chart. Friends, the control chart which you are seeing over here is developed by Walter Shewhart, who is also popularly known as Guru of Deming. Friends, a typical control chart will look like this, and the control chart will have a central line which is also called a target line. You will have an upper control limit, a lower control limit. your upper control limit will be 3 standard deviation above target value and the lower control limit will be 3 standard deviation below the target value. And this is applicable in all the cases whether you are using X bar R chart or P chart, C chart, NP chart, U chart or X bar S chart or individual moving range chart. That means in all the cases you will have your upper control limit at 3 standard deviation or 3 sigma if I talk in a broader sense, that is how commonly being used in industry, and 3 standard deviation or 3 sigma below the target value. Now let's understand friend how to select proper control chart, and for that as we have already discussed, first of all you need to understand what kind of data you are going to plot in your control chart. That means based on the type of data of your control chart you need to decide which control chart is suitable for that. So in this flow chart you can understand the various control charts and the condition in which that need to be picked up. So the first question would be whether my data is attribute or variable. If my data is variable in nature, I would come to this side, and if my data is attribute in nature, I will come to this side. So let's first understand the variable data control charts. So if my data is variable in nature, then my next question would be what is my sample size? If my sample size is 1, I will be using individual moving range chart, and if my sample size is not 1, that means more than 1, my further question would be if my sample size is less than 10. If my sample size is less than 10, I will be using X bar R chart or average range chart, and if my sample size is more than 10, I will be using X bar S or average standard deviation chart. Now let's come to the other side, which is attribute control chart, and here in this side your further question would be if I am going to plot the defect or defective. Friends, to understand the difference between defect and defective, I have already made a video. You can check that video to understand the difference. So if I am going to plot the defect, my further question would be what is my unit size? If my unit size is always same, I can use C chart. If my unit size is variable, I can use U chart. And if I am going to plot the defectives or the number of rejections, my further question would be what is my sample? If my sample is constant or a variable. If my sample is always constant, I will be using NP chart, and if my sample is variable, then I will be using P chart. Friends, in most of our control charts, we will be using control limits, that is upper control limit and lower control limit, and there are formulas, universal formulas in fact available to calculate the upper control limit and lower control limit, and you will be using some constants over there. For an example, in our X bar R chart, we use D2, D3, D4 and A2 as constants. So my recommendation would be don't go into the mathematics, simply use the constants as per your sample size and you calculate your control limits, because these are all universally accepted values, and if you face any difficulty in getting these values, simply Google it and you will be getting it quite easily online. Now let's understand the use of these constants in a control chart, and for that we will be using X bar R chart or average range chart for example, and let's take a subgroup of 5 which is quite commonly used in manufacturing industries at least. So if your subgroup size is 5, the constant value D2 will be 2.326, A2 will be 0.577 and D3 you can see up to a subgroup size of 6 it will be 0. That means up to a subgroup size of 6 your lower control limit in range chart will be 0, and the constant value for D4 will be for a subgroup size of 5 it will be 2.115, and the formula to calculate the standard deviation will be R bar by D2, and to calculate the control limit, that is upper control and lower control limit for average chart, would be X double bar, which is also called X grand bar, plus minus A2 R bar. That means you will be using plus sign for the upper control limit and minus sign for calculating the lower control limit. Same way you can see the formula for a lower control limits for a range chart would be D3 R bar. That means D3 multiplied by R bar, and as we have already discussed that till a sample size or subgroup size of 6, your lower control limit will be 0 for range chart, and for upper control limit the formula is D4 R bar. That means whatever R bar you are going to get, multiply that with D4, and for a sample size of 5 it to multiply with 2.115 and you will be getting your upper control limit for range chart. Friends, this is how your control chart would look like typically. This is your average chart and this is your range chart. That means you are going to plot two charts, one for average and one for range. So here in average chart, our target line will be X double bar and upper control limit and lower control limit. And in range chart, again, the target line is R bar and an upper control limit and a lower control limit. And the lower control limit you can see here, it is 0. And this value plotted over here in average chart, in range chart, they are not individual values. They are basically average values of each subgroup plotted in average chart and range value for each subgroup plotted in range charts. Now friends, we have understood the control chart. So for an example, if you are plotting any control chart, X bar R chart, P chart, C chart, and after plotting the control chart, how would you come to know if your process is in a state of control, statistical control, or it is showing some indication of out of control situation? And there are many conditions with that you can come to know if a process is in control or not. And the first scenario is one or more points falling outside the control limits. Say for an example, you are plotting a control chart, X bar or R chart, and any point is falling outside, above upper control limit or below lower control limit. That means your process is out of control. That means there is a presence of a special cause. You need to identify that special cause and initiate some action. Bring back the process to control scenario. And there are some more scenarios, and for that, first of all, let's understand this part. As we know that the central line, that is the target line, and our upper control limit is above the target line by 3 sigma or 3 standard deviation, and the lower control limit is below the target line by 3 standard deviation, and this every zone are basically 1 sigma or 1 standard deviation. So this is 1 standard deviation, the C zone here and here 1 standard deviation, this B is also 1 standard deviation, and A is also 1 standard deviation. That means this side is 3 standard deviation and this side is again 3 standard deviation. So now let's understand the other scenarios. The first one is 9 consecutive points are on one side of the average. That means this is my average. If there are consecutive 9 points here in this side above the target line or below the target line, that means the process has gone out of control. Identify the special cause and take action. The second point is there are 6 consecutive points increasing or decreasing. That means above the target or below the target line, consecutive 6 points either in increasing trend or in decreasing trend, either in this side or this side. If that happens, that means your process is gone out of control. And the next scenario is there are 14 consecutive points that alternate up or down. That means around the target value, 14 points are behaving like this zigzag manner. So if you find this kind of scenario, that means your process is not stable, it is gone out of control, or somebody is using cooked data for plotting the control charts. Friends, if you are really engaged in the process, if you have seen the behavior of the process for a long time, you can come to know by looking at the control chart whether people are using real data from the soft floor or they are using cooked data for plotting the control charts. The next scenario is 2 points out of 3 consecutive points are on the same side of the average in zone A or beyond. That means in this side, you have measured 3 points, and out of the 3 points, either in this side or this side, falling in zone A. That means the process has gone out of control, and in the next observation, it might go outside the control limit also. So it is an indication, bring back the process to center. The next scenario is 4 points out of 5 consecutive points are on the same side of the average in zone B or beyond. That means in B zone, here in this side or in this side, you have measured 5 points and 4 are falling in zone B. Again, bring back to center. And the next scenario is there are 15 consecutive points within zone C, above and below the average. That means here in this side, you have 14 points falling in zone C. That is also not a good indication. That means something is wrong. Investigate, find out the reason and take action. And the last scenario is there are 8 points in a row in zone B or beyond. That means here in zone B or beyond, that means that is crossing to zone A also. If that happens, the process is indicating it has gone out of control. Initiate action, bring back to center. So friends, I hope that you must have understood the concept of statistical process control. This was a brief session on statistical process control. Don't forget to visit our website www.qualityhubindia.com, and you can go to course section to learn about all our courses available, and you can buy them online and you can learn from the convenience of your home. Do visit our second channel, Gyan Jyoti India. There also you will find many learning videos. And if you've got some learning, don't forget to like the video and share the link of the video with your friends and colleagues. Take care friends. Jai Hind.